I think the correlation is to distinguish between what is out and about in our day and age for convenience versus what is really more natural for us as human beings. So for convenience, for example, getting fast food has nothing to do with health. Sitting in a chair all day at work has nothing to do with good health. Not sleeping, because we're in the city that never sleeps, is completely against our bodies and how we were meant to function.
Hello guys, Amadeus here, and today I'm sitting with a very special guest, someone that I was looking forward to. I told all of my friends about this. I'm sure you are looking forward to this as well. I'm sitting with Susan Daddario,
Yes.
from Back to Sleep, and she's going to talk to you about, I wrote this down, she's going to talk to you about the importance of sleep, why it's important for you as an individual, and why it's important for corporate America. Just to start us off, bustling New York City is a city that quote unquote never sleeps.
Right.
What are some common things that you saw from your customers coming to you? Why aren't they sleeping well? What are some common symptoms that you've been able to diagnose people as to why they're not getting efficiency in their sleep?
Well, the symptoms are many people who come here, the vast majority are people who either cannot fall asleep at night, or they fall asleep at night but wake up in the middle of the night and cannot fall back to sleep. Or they do fall asleep at night and manage to sleep during the night, but when they wake up, they're not feeling well rested.
Okay.
So they're variations of what I would diagnose as insomnia.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of what they can do about it, there's a lot that can be done. And unfortunately, some of the things that people do is they go right onto a sleep medication. And that becomes very problematic. Okay.
So we're going to get into how people can fix these symptoms.
Yeah.
But I want to talk to you about, you said almost 8 years ago, you started to embody them. You said you went into the mental, the spiritual, the body, and you started to study that. So how does that come into play with overall well-being? How does our mentality, our spirituality, how does that come into play?
I think it's really being in touch with our inner selves that matters tremendously. I think in such a hustle-bustle world that we live in, we lose touch of things. We lose touch of who we are and what we're about and why we're here and what brings us hope and joy. And even losing touch with ourselves in terms of our being embodied. We're kind of operating, in my view, more or less on autopilot. So about 8 years or so ago, and even beyond that, for myself personally, I became very, very interested in wellness. I've always been interested in supporting people with their emotions and mental health. But I became very, very intrigued with fitness for myself. I had always been super tomboy as a kid, and I loved team sports, and yet because of life, I got out of that and I wanted to get back into it. So I started moving and I started feeling a little bit better. And from there, I got into the eating perspective. And it was very spiritual because I started studying about our Paleolithic ancestors and what it meant and what it means now to eat foods that are real foods versus processed foods, which also, by the way, can very much interfere in falling asleep. Yes. And from there, I also became very intrigued with the impact of stress on us and our health and our well-being overall. And finally, sleep. Because of a situation that occurred for me personally.
And we'll get into that. But I want to talk to you. I just like to strip everything. Like if I imagine a rag with water, I'm just kind of stripping it and getting all of your information, interest, and knowledge. So you said autopilot. Now that's, I want to ask, you said most of us are acting on autopilot. How can we break out of that and start making conscious decisions?
Well, that actually takes work. First of all, becoming aware that one is in or on autopilot is a big deal. And then there are many practices to try to help us get out of that. Mindfulness comes to mind as I speak about that, just becoming very focused on here and now and what's going on right in the moment versus belaboring what might have happened yesterday or what's going to happen tomorrow.
So how can I become right in the moment now to be present with you in this interview? Because I literally just had someone message me, kind of threw me off a little bit. I was like, okay, let me just... So what are some tips if someone's having like a moment, they just need to get something out of their head, what are some things we can do to kind of become more present in the moment?
You can, a couple of things. First of all, you can really kind of just ground yourself by being aware of how your body feels sitting in that chair, how your feet feel, how your limbs feel, how the chair feels. Is it comfortable? Is it not comfortable? And really becoming aware and even thinking about how the chair came to be, who made the chair, and appreciation is a big thing too. I know you were warm before cooling down a little bit, the setting things up for the interview and the quietness, all of that can be something that can get you out of autopilot. Deep breathing is another way to get one out of autopilot. It's a way to relax us, to slow ourselves down, because part of autopilot is that we are just constantly and chronically in the sympathetic nervous system response, meaning we're stressed out.
So would it be safe to say that working out is a way to get out of that autopilot mode? Because I'm thinking about it, and when I work out, I'm breathing.
Yes.
I'm very conscious of my body, right?
Yes.
Obviously, I'm stressing my body out, so I'm very conscious of how aware it is. And I think that's a very good form of meditation, because I'm releasing a lot of stress. And you said you're very active as well. You like
I am very
sports.
active, yes.
Wow. So
yes.
I guess without even getting into it, I guess working out would be a great way to relieve stress.
I would say this, that it really varies from person to person.
Okay.
So for some people, they might go to the gym and use some machines and just do it mindlessly and just start thinking about things they're angry about or what happened yesterday. And it depends. But if you're there and you're feeling up, and if you're aware of what you're doing and how it's making you feel and accomplishments, that's different.
Yes. I like to go listen to some music or even some podcasts.
Yes.
All right. And then you also mentioned one more thing before I continue on.
Right.
Paleolithic ancestors.
Right. So 200, 300,000 years ago, Homo sapiens, and they had a different lifestyle. And their lifestyle was to be far more in touch with nature. Obviously, they were outdoors. They were in the sun. They moved. They were physically active every day. They ate foods that were real foods that grew from the earth, or animals that they may have hunted. And they had a very, very different lifestyle. And
so what made you mention them? How does that play in today's society? Are you asking for us to be a little bit more active, or what's the correlation?
I think the correlation is to distinguish between what is out and about in our day and age for convenience versus what is really more natural for us as human beings. So for convenience, for example, getting fast food has nothing to do with health. Sitting in a chair all day at work has nothing to do with good health. Not sleeping, because we're in the city that never sleeps, is completely against our bodies and how we were meant to function. So I like to refer to the Paleolithic era. I also can go to the 1850s, before artificial light was developed. And if you think back about your ancestors who lived in the 1850s and how you imagine their life might have been, a day in the life of your ancestors back then would have been very different than how we are today.
So again, I'm just kind of unpacking this. So you're saying to become more, I think overall from this first bit, to ground yourself more into nature and to ground yourself more with yourself.
Yes.
I think those are the two primary things that you said. I actually want to take a step back a few steps back. So how does this actually come about to you? How does this actually come about for you? Becoming a sleep science coach.
Okay. So I also had my own sleep issues. And my sleep issue for a long time, I mean, we're talking years was that I was the person who did sleep through the night, but when I woke up in the mornings, I did not feel well rested. And the other symptom was in the afternoons in my office, I had to use all my might not to fall asleep. All my might. Involuntarily, I would suddenly wake up, for example. So a little more than 3 years ago, I was driving back home from volleyball. I just got off the highway. I was on a side street to park my car. Thankfully, I was going slowly, but I suddenly fell asleep behind the wheel, which in hindsight was horrifying. Thankfully, I was going slow enough that I didn't crash into anything and I didn't hit anyone. It was, I think, when I was just about to nod out, something went off inside of me that there was a flood of cortisol and panic. And I just sat myself up and smashed on the brakes. So that was a life-changing event for me. And I suddenly realized I had to take this seriously. I was just saying, oh, well, that's how it was. And I said, it cannot be this way anymore. So that's when I started researching everything I could on sleep. And I learned a lot. And then ultimately I found the sleep science program online through the Spencer Institute and became certified as a coach. And I thought I didn't want anyone else to have to go through what I went through. And I restructured my practice and started focusing exclusively working with people who had troubles with sleep.
Wow. So that rock bottom moment for you, would you say a rock bottom moment just in general is a great Kickstarter to start something new, to make a new adjustment?
Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, sometimes for folks in this case for me too, that's the only thing that could help to inspire or motivate us to make a change. Because it's too easy, again, to stay in autopilot and just do the same old, same old.
So it was, I guess, a blessing, really. Just a really eye-opening, saying, okay, well, this is quote, that in which you do not hate, you will eventually tolerate.
Correct.
So you got into the moment that this is no longer going to happen anymore.
Correct.
You made that decision.
Yes.
So when you made that decision, you immediately went to action. You started studying this.
Yes.
So when you started studying this and gained this knowledge, how did that translate into teaching somebody else? How did that translate into like the first customer?
Well, I designed a program as well. It wasn't what I really am proud about in my practice and in my program is I like to give information to people, and I do that all the time. But the other equally important thing I feel I provide, if not more important, is coaching them to make a behavioral change. It's one thing to start doing things a little differently. That's hard enough, but it's even harder, I believe, to maintain a change. And that's a lot of what I try to do as well. Introduce new information and then help a person to assimilate it, even with minor tweaks. Sometimes someone will say, no, I can't do that. And with a minor tweak, it makes an enormous difference and they can start to do things.
So so going back to the moment you started studying, once you started studying, you gained some knowledge on this.
Yes.
How did you gain the confidence to teach someone else? Because for me, I guess in my profession, I began, you're right. My first client was myself. I actually started doing videos for myself and then it translated. I just want to know that moment of how did that translate into that first customer? How did you even get the idea to help somebody out? And do that for a living, I guess.
Well, I had transferable skills being a psychotherapist. Okay. I was used to working with people in that kind of modality. And this was different, but similar to what I had been doing for all those years. So rather than going and doing some deep psychoanalytic work with people, this was more of behavior change and supporting their external wellness. Versus working on issues that they had inside that they needed or wanted to resolve.
So let's get into the meat of this. So you turn this thing around, you started building out a program, and now someone watching this is saying, okay, great, I really want to improve my sleep. Now you do have the number one thing that people should the most important thing for a good night's sleep. I'll save number one for that consultation. What about 2 and 3? What's some other things that people can do?
I'd be happy to share. And you know what? There's so many things, but what I want to share actually have to do with nature. So let me just say this, that our body, our human being bodies and the sun have very, very similar rhythms. So the sun's rhythm is known as the circadian rhythm. And when we start to follow the sun's rhythm, sun is, takes about close to 24 hours to complete a day. And that's the human being's body's rhythm. It's 24 hours. And when the sun rises in the morning, that's when we should be rising. When the sun at noon, that's high noon, the sun's at its strongest, that's the time for most of us to have our strongest metabolism. When the sun sets at night, that is when, ideally, we're supposed to start to set and wind down as well. And when it's dark out there and the sun is nowhere to be found, we're supposed to go to sleep. So the first tip then is that I would propose that you make a consistent wake-up time. Not the body does not recognize that a weekend is different than the week. And I know people love to sleep in and make up for lost sleep. And I'll just share this, that is a way to perpetuate insomnia. One morning you're going to wake up at 6, and the next morning on a Saturday you'll wake up at 11. You're creating jet lag. One will be in chronic jet lag if that's what happens, and that is what happens. So the wake up time, the consistency of it is really important and helpful. And the way to determine what your wake up time is what time do you need to wake up, for example, when you have things to do during the week, when you have to get to school by, when you have to get to work by, when you have to take the kids to school, whatever it is. Say, for example, that time is 6:30, then that's your time. Okay. That's the time to make it day after day after day. And if it varies 20 minutes here or there, that's okay too. I don't believe in perfection. But that's tip number 1. Before you determine, by the way, what your bedtime should be, it's the wake-up time.
Before we even get to tip number 2,
yeah,
this is my book. I have several books where I write down all my information. I wrote down a few New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
And one of it was to wake up consistently at, I think it was 5 a.m. Now, I wake up at 7, right? That's my thing, 7. I did it dramatically at 5 every single day. It sounded good on paper. I did it good for one day. And I think in about course of like 4 months, I probably been able to do it like 20 times. So how can someone, set that time and then actually hit it?
I would wonder, if you want to make your wake up time at 5 in the morning, that's rather ambitious. Yes. You might be sleep depriving yourself if you insist on forcing yourself to wake up at 5 to do things you want to do, because in all fairness, you want your body to rest and rejuvenate during the night. And if you're having such a hard time with the 5 a.m. wake up, I would suspect that it's not natural for your body to wake up at 5. So this again entails being a partner with your body. And it would entail that if you're going to wake up at 5, then we would look at, all right, so what time are you getting to sleep at night?
11.
How many hours would that be?
7.
Yeah. Well, I think your body needs more than 7 hours of sleep. For some people, that would 6 hours. Yeah. A third of us around the world are sleep deprived, and we're getting 6 hours or less. So welcome to the club. And I just think that your body would probably be more cooperative if you made it a 6 o'clock wake up time, or if you went to bed earlier.
Now 7 is my like circumference. I know my radius. I usually 640, 720. That's my radius, right? And as for the needing time to rejuvenate, now here's the other argument, right?
Okay.
So there's days when I'm like really busy, I have to wake up, I have to do this, do that, boom, 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 boom. I can operate on 4 hours of sleep, and I'll be as efficient. And there's days where I don't have anything on my schedule. I can get 10 hours of sleep, and I'd still be tired. Yeah. So what role does purpose and motivation actually play with rejuvenating the body?
So purpose and motivation are important, but I would think that when you have a lot on your plate that day, that you have a lot of adrenaline going on. You have a lot of cortisol going on. So hormones play an enormous role in sleep or not sleeping and how we feel. So I think your hormones are kicking in. And it's telling you, okay, Amadeus, I really have a big day. Get up, do this, do that. And then the days that you don't have that kind of day, you wake up and you're exhausted and you're, not doing that much. And I think that's speaking more the truth, that you have sleep debt and your body is exhausted.
Yeah, I'd say every Thursday. God, like if you contact me on a Thursday, I'm done. Because Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays are my busiest days. Okay. Thursdays, I'm done. Fridays, Saturday, Sunday. But all right. Thank you, because now I don't have to feel bad about not waking up at 5. Because I feel that my natural pattern, my creativity is like, it actually sparks after like 9 p.m. But I usually go to the gym and come back and my creativity is actually sparked. But I'm like, let me go back to sleep. So thank you. I might just have to nix that whole 7 a.m. and 5 a.m. thing. But I do want to talk to you about the importance of sleep, because not so much now, but when I was younger, and I guess some people watching this as well, we fall into that workaholic category where it's like every day work, right? Yes. And oftentimes we're not getting enough sleep. So what are some of the first short-term and long-term, outcomes of not having enough sleep?
Yeah, that's a great question. The short terms are, first of all, very clearly when we don't get enough sleep, we don't feel great. We feel exhausted, and it's really just hard to get out of bed. If you have a poor night's sleep, believe it or not, if you went to get your blood tested the very next morning, your blood sugar would be most likely at the level of being pre-diabetic. So one of the immediate impacts of a poor night's sleep is that your blood sugar rises. And if one is chronically sleep deprived, that is one of the reasons why lack of sleep can ultimately lead to one becoming diabetic. Lack of sleep also very, very much compromises our immune system. And when your immune system is compromised, research shows that people who have trouble with sleep are 2 times more likely to develop cancer than those who get appropriate amount of sleep on a nightly basis. It also increases the possibility of getting a stroke. It increases heart issues. It actually can contribute to Alzheimer's disease. And even based upon my story, it impacts one's getting into accidents. It can impact your ability to concentrate, to focus, to be creative, to learn, to remember. So it goes on and on and on. It's truly detrimental, the lifestyles that we lead when we don't get the sleep we need.
So in your perspective, what is the real meaning, the real purpose of in human nature? What's the purpose of us to sleep? Why do we sleep?
That's a wonder. There's a book called Why Do We Sleep, by the way, New York Times bestseller. But sleep, when we sleep, that is when a lot of our healing occurs. Body healing. So, for example, if you're having an active day and you're working out at the gym or doing whatever you're doing, and you might have some micro tears in your muscle, or you might strain yourself, or something happens, and just ordinary wear and tear in the body. It's when you're sleeping that the repair occurs. So there are different stages of sleep, and when you're in deep sleep, that's when growth hormone is released, and that is how you're going to stay in shape, and that is how your body is going to heal itself. So that's one of the purposes of sleep. And the other purpose is also to rejuvenate your mind. So if you don't get enough sleep, as I said, you're not going to be able to function not at all near your 100% capacity of thinking, of concentrating, of being creative. So it truly impacts just about everything that one does.
Now, I'm very thankful for this because, again, like, So I've been an entrepreneur for only 4 years, right? So a fraction of the time. But I'd say the earlier days for me it's been building a foundation, building my portfolio. So I had to do a lot of like grunt work, right? And those days I didn't get enough sleep. Now I'm kind of benefiting from the work that I've done a few years back, right? So, but I'm like, yo, am I lazy now? Like, I'm like, why am I getting so much sleep? You know, and I actually feel bad. Literally, I actually feel bad for getting 8 to 10 hours of sleep.
Yeah, I mean, you are noting such a common issue. There's so much resistance for people to get the sleep that they need. There is sleep machismo. There is resistance because we have this work ethic that you must work. Yes. Otherwise, we're lazy, and couldn't be further from the truth.
Wow.
It just couldn't be. So I try to address those thoughts that people come in with and dispel them. And they're myths, and they have nothing to do with us truly in our natural selves and being our optimal selves.
Wow, I'm glad that you're talking about this. So, but what about during the day? What's some things that I can do or we can all do during the day that will benefit our actual sleep?
When you wake up in the morning, one of the best things you can do for your body and for your sleep is to get exposed to sunlight, real sunlight, and even daylight. For example, today is an overcast day, but when you wake up in the morning and if you can get 20 to 30 minutes exposure to daylight, that is the foundation for your brain because the light enters through your eyes and it informs your brain that a new day has started. And your brain needs to know for your rhythm, it's the master clock in your brain, for your rhythm, okay, it's a new day, it's daylight, and now I know that in 24 hours where I am. So getting exposed to daylight, and I don't mean artificial light, I mean outdoor light, or if worse comes to worse, a sunbox can also give you the light.
So I'm sensing a pattern here. The more we become more in tune with nature, the better our sleep will be, the better our quality of life and well-being will be. You mentioned the sun. You mentioned Paleolithic ancestors.
Yes.
Well, what about diet? Have you mentioned diet?
Absolutely. What we eat. So the way I look at it is that if you have a chair with 4 legs, each leg represents some sturdiness for that chair. Okay. So leg number 1, let's call it sleep. Leg number 2 is nutrition or diet. Leg number 3 can be physical activity, and leg number 4 is stress. They all come together and support each other. And imagine if the chair represents you, if we took away one of those legs, what would happen to that chair?
It would be unstable.
If you took away a second leg, what would happen to that chair?
It would be extremely unstable.
And if you took away a third leg, what would happen to that chair?
Beautiful.
Eventually it's going to crash. So if you want the optimal opportunity to be your best, I absolutely propose that we start doing things the way they used to be done by human beings, our ancestors. We can go as far back as Paleolithic or as far back as the 1850s, but all of those things come together. So how we eat informs how we're going to sleep. If you eat a ton of sugar, for example, in processed foods, you're going to not sleep well. If people have a snack right before going to sleep at night, they're going to have a sugar rise up, the insulin will rise, but then it will crash. And when it crashes in the middle of the night, guess what happens? You wake up.
Oh, because I actually go to the gym at night and then eat and then sleep. So that must be a really bad pattern.
That probably is not in your best interest, but you also mentioned you get to sleep extremely late, too.
I'd say around 12, and I wake up around
12,
7.
yeah,
So
okay.
then I get 7 hours of sleep.
I think we could talk more, but I also recommend, if you can, either working out in the morning or at 7 o'clock in the evening, because let me explain why. And I know this is part of when I work with someone, it's like I can't, and so how do we work that out? Okay. So when you work out at the very end of the day, what happens is it warms up your core body temperature, and warmth is another impediment to getting a good night's sleep. Your body responds much, much better in getting a deep night's sleep when it's cool. It's cool in your room, your bedroom, but also your body temperature itself should be cool in order for you to really be able to drift off into a beautiful restorative sleep.
Wow. Well, Susan, I mean, I'm learning so much here. Like, I mean, I'm so thankful. And I just have a few more questions.
Sure.
That's just, well, I want to go. So you help out, you was, kind of just guiding me. Well, you help out a lot of people with your break. Well, let's talk about some of your individual services. So someone wants to get in contact with you. What are some of the things that you can provide to people to help them, rejuvenate their sleep?
Well, sure. I provide one-on-one coaching for the individuals, and I can do that either here in my office. I also like to offer it via phone or virtual media like Skype or something like that, too, because I know.
Oh, so you can do this anywhere.
Yes.
Oh, beautiful.
Correct,
beautiful.
because I'm trying to reach people. And I know that we have these busy lives, and not everyone can get over here. So I don't see why that should interfere in us meeting and having a session. So I do one-on-one sessions. I also offer groups. I just finished a group recently, a 6-week group for an hour and a half. Each week we went over a different element of how to get to sleep. So it included nutrition, physical activity, all those things we were just talking about. I offer seminars to associations and workshops and so on and so forth.
Now, one thing I forgot to talk about before I ask some of my final questions. Corporations. How does sleep the lack of sleep negatively affect corporations?
Well, first of all, if we think about a corporation, what it really is a collection of people. So if you have a collection of people, and most of us are sleep deprived, it has to have an impact on a corporation. But just to say a few things, because of sleep deprivation, the rate of absenteeism has gone way up. The rate of tardiness has gone way up. The ability to concentrate, to produce, to function to 100% has gone way down. There has been an increase of work accidents. I mean, sometimes you hear about those trains that have the accidents and it's going 120 miles an hour around a bend that should be 35 miles an hour, and people get upset with the conductor. Well, basically what's happened is he or she has fallen asleep. And that's how that is why that's happening. And lastly, there was a study done in 2011. And between all the different impacts of the sleep deprivation, it has cost corporate America in 2011 more than $63 billion from people who are sleep deprived.
So what does that mean? So if I'm a corporation, because I look to one day have a huge corporation, how should I solve that problem?
You should hire someone like me to come meet with your staff and provide education and training and rethinking things to truly make a difference. Because I understand that work is important and people want top performance, but they will never, ever get top performance as long as people are sleep deprived.
Wow. So, dang. This video makes me want to go to sleep. So, thank you so much, Susan. This final couple of questions I'd like to ask all of my guests. Okay. So, you ready for this?
Yes.
Urgency or patience?
I'm sorry?
Urgency or patience?
Patience.
Okay. Hard work or smart work?
Smart.
One of your favorite books?
Oh, goodness.
Just one of them.
Right now I'm reading Sapiens.
Okay. And one of your favorite movies?
Oh, goodness. Can I think about that?
Yeah.
It doesn't pop to mind so easily.
Just one.
I know, just one. Life is Beautiful.
Life is Beautiful.
It was an Italian, Umberto, I forget his last name right now. It was a beautiful movie.
One of the most notable places you've traveled to outside of the States?
Italy.
Okay. And then last question I'd like to ask all of my guests. Before I do that, I want to say, I'm so happy you mentioned you do Skype calls. So now if you're in London or in New York or in Shanghai or in Colombia or Philippines, if you're watching this video, you can go and contact Susan. So back/to/sleep.com.
Yes.
That's how you can contact Susan. Appreciate it. And anything else you want to say to the camera? Anything else you want to say to the camera?
I wish everyone the best night's sleep. And if you have any troubles at all, I offer free consultation, 30 minutes. Check it out. No strings attached. Even if that's all you want from me, if you benefit from it, that's what I'm looking for.
Beautiful. So if this video wasn't enough, contact her and she'll get you started. I want to see you work with her because I definitely know you are definitely sleep deprived. Because I know I'm sleep deprived. I'm pretty sure you are too if you're watching this video. So last question I have to ask all of my guests: New York in one word.
Home.
Home. Thank you so much. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. If you're watching this on my website, thank you so much. Remember, back-to-sleep.com. Susan, last name? D'Addario. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Be great.
Thank you.
That was good.
That's good.
That was really good.
Yeah, that was fun.
Woohoo!
Okay, great.